This video is going to look at examination technique, and it's how to answer the 9-mark questions for the AQA and GCSE Business Studies papers, both 1 and 2. Okay, I just wanted to show you the mark scheme for the 9-mark questions, and also just highlight the point at the bottom. There is not one preferred or prescribed way of answering this question. In my opinion, you're just trying to demonstrate the skills. So there are websites, there are videos, and the stuff from AQA, which are all brilliant, which are all really useful, but there isn't one prescribed way of doing it. Okay, you just need to show effectively 3 skills. Okay, one of those is judgment, one of those is analysis, the chain of points, one point linking to another, which links to another, and then you need to explain it in the given case study. So if you look at the top part of the mark scheme, which was on the analysis video, to get level 3, 4 to 3 marks, you've got to analyse issues relating to options in context. Okay, so that means that you are explaining, you are linking your points to the case study with your chain of analysis. Okay, so there's 2 skills, analysis and context. Hopefully you're aware of this by now, but you actually get more marks for the judgment at the in your answer. Okay, when I've marked these papers before, you often see massive 1 paragraph about this, another paragraph about that, and then 2-3 sentences saying what they would do overall. Okay, that's completely wrong. Okay, you need to make sure that your judgment at the end is a substantial paragraph. 5 minutes writing it. Okay, 4 minutes doing your previous part. Okay, with the judgment, the candidate needs to offer judgment with clear justification for chosen expansion method. So this was about in terms of how a business should expand. So it would be the previous question about should they franchise or should they go down the organic route. So whichever one you went for, you need to justify why you've chosen it. Okay, so whatever structure that you use, it's about demonstrating those skills: the analysis, the application, and then making judgments throughout your answer. Okay, this video will just give you some guidance in terms of what you could potentially do, and will give you a framework in terms of how I feel that you could demonstrate those skills. Based upon the previous exam papers, these are the types of 9-mark questions that you tend to find. Okay, one will give you 2 options. So Monique does not think she could afford to pay for both market research and to pay for promoting a business. So you're given 2 options to choose. Okay, which is great. It's nice and easy that you know you're talking about market research or promoting her business. Okay, the other one is where you're given one method, one idea. Okay, and I've jotted down pro and con, but I'll explain about that in a little bit, and perhaps to kind of avoid against it. So I recommend whether or not the newspaper should increase the price to 60p. So you're looking at, increasing the price, what would be good, or the other angle would be that no, it's not a good idea. Okay, and give reasons for your recommendation. Probably the hardest one is where you have to generate your own ideas. Advise Dan on how he might best deal with the increased competition facing his business. So you've got to generate your own points. That could be anything. Lower your prices, advertise more, perhaps move your location, develop your product range. It doesn't matter. Okay, you've got to come up with your own idea. There might be a cash flow question on there where it says how could they solve the cash flow problem. You would then have to come up with your own suggestions for them to do it. Just a bit of a footnote, sometimes there's been marketing questions. Using the marketing mix, how could Dan improve his business? Okay, I personally don't think you should be looking at all 4 P's. I would just concentrate on 1 or at most 2, because then you can get your analysis. If you're trying to cover the 4 P's, that's not going to be the chain of analysis. Okay, so be prepared in terms of the types of 9-mark questions you can get. Okay, this is the structure that I would suggest. Always at the back of your head, you're thinking 4 marks is for the analysis and context, and 5 marks is for the judgment, the written and quality of written communication, and the context as well. My advice would be that you start off your answer with your judgment. Okay, really important. I've written in bold, don't change your mind. Okay, so don't say at the beginning, question could be, okay, what method of motivation that they could do. Say, I think that they should use a bonus. And then you explain it. Then you say, I also think that they should use fringe benefits. That's contradicting your answer. Okay, you must never, ever, ever do that. That's going to really restrict the level you can get. Basically, because you're not judging. You've left it open. You've left it far too broad. Okay, so I think the best option for Paul and Arena to make people aware of the new business would be posters in the animal hospitals. So at the very beginning for this particular question, which was saying kind of generating awareness, I've said that they should use posters to do this. Then I'd go on and explain why. Again, linking back to a previous video of analysis, 3 sentences, 3 lines even, which then explain why you've gone for that. I've just written in bold, no conflict. Okay, you've kind of got 2 options. You would go for another pro for the posters. So the one pro could be that within the hospital, within animal hospitals, you can make the posters colourful, attractive, really eye-catching. What you don't want then to do is kind of be critical of it. You don't want to be negative of it, because that's kind of contradicting the answer that you've chosen. Why have you not chosen the other option? So the other option that you come up with might be direct mail. Okay, I've chosen the posters over the direct mail because with direct mail it wouldn't be appropriate because they don't have a sufficient database. They don't know who the customers are, so therefore they can't directly contact them. Or you talk about another pro for your option, i.e. the posters. Obviously a good pro would be that the posters are in the animal hospitals. That's their target market. They're going to appeal to who they want. Okay, so at the beginning of your answer, you've started off with saying, right, we should use posters. 2-3 lines with your analysis, with it linked. And then, to make sure you don't have a conflict, you don't have a contradiction, you don't criticise the poster option, you then would come up with another pro for the posters, or you'd say why you've not chosen direct mail. Okay, because by doing that, you're not criticising the posters, you're criticising the other method. Okay, then at the end, I personally really like this, and it was off tutor to you. It was a blog by the secret examiner who has come up with the 3 W's, and I think it's concise and it's a good strategy to approach. With your judgment at the end, the key is that you're not repeating what you've previously written. Okay, so with this structure, you are changing the approach in terms of how you answer it. So therefore, it will mean that you're not just repeating what you previously said. So the 3 W's are which option? So what have you gone for? Why have you picked it? And then why is that choice better than the alternative option? So again, also as well, like a big hint, make it really clear when you're starting your final judgment. So you've already made it clear at the beginning, then make it clear at the end. Phrases you could use: overall, I think that they should use the posters, or in judgment, I've chosen to use the posters. Okay, that's crucial, because then you're making it easy for the examiners to give you marks. Okay, from a practical point of view, when you look back at your answer, the 9 marker, the depth of it, the judgment at the end should be longer than the analysis that you've previously done. Okay, so then you'd say, right, why you've chosen this. Okay, so why have you picked this option? You could you're not coming up with a new point. So like, for example, my big thing about the posters would be that it'd be appealing to the target market. So you would say why that is significant. In judgment, I've chosen to use the posters within the animal hospital. The most significant reason for this is that you're directly communicating with your target market. This will mean that Paul and Arena are directly focusing upon their potential customers, and it makes the information relevant to their target audience, and then hopefully this will lead to more customers. So you're saying, what was the most significant point that you're making? Why was that important? And then going back, if your previous pro was about they could be colourful, they could be attractive, you're showing judgment, you're showing evaluation, because you've said the most important reason for that is that you're appealing to your target market. Then you're saying, why is this better than the alternative? Okay, so direct mail is not as good as the posters because, so that way you're criticising direct mail, but you're still using the posters. Okay, so direct mail is not as good as the posters because it's time consuming. Lots of times people just delete the emails, delete the post, just throw it away. So that's how you would do it. Okay, chain of analysis and everything in context, just generally. So quick summary. Start your answer off with, in judgment, I think that they should use the posters. Explain why. Then, to make sure there's no conflict, you would give another pro for your option of the posters, or you would say why you've not chosen to use another method like direct mail, like the internet. Okay, because then that way you're not contradicting your other point. If you said about the posters are really good because, then you spend a whole paragraph criticizing posters, that's contradicting. Okay. So we'll just have a quick look at this question. A to Z Frames needs to lower its cost because of the competition from imports. It's considering whether it can reduce its cost by paying the workers on the basis of how many frames they make. Discuss whether or not changing the way it pays its workers would be the best way of reducing costs. One really important question is that you make sure you directly answer the question. So with here, anything you talk about, staff motivation, production, wastage, you would then bring it back to reducing costs. Okay, and you do that for all of the questions. If the question is about staff motivation, in terms of improving the performance of the business, you need to say how the method of motivation improves the performance of the business. So with that example of A to Z Frames of trying to reduce their costs, should they change the payment systems, this is my judgment at the end. So I've said, in judgment, I'm making it clear to the examiner, I'm doing my conclusion at the end, I'm bringing everything together, I'm coming up with my answer and why. In judgment, the most appropriate option for A to Z Frames to reduce costs is not to pay workers per frame. Again, just flag up the context, A to Z Frames, to pay workers per frame, not per anything else, per frame. Okay, the most important reason is that if A to Z Frames change the payment options, workers could produce more frames, which means they would have increased costs due to more frames being made, which could be wasted because as a small business they may not sell them. One point, I know from an English point of view you'd probably want to break that sentence up, but from a business point of view the sentence is fine, but by not breaking it up you're having the chain of analysis. You're having one point that leads to another point that results in something else. So far my judgment is, then I've said what was the most important reason, what was the most significant reason for it. Then I'm not criticising my choice, so I'm not contradicting my choice, but I've said at the bottom not changing payment options is better because so again I'm supporting what I'm saying, because paying per item would mean staff would rush frames, so quality would drop, which means errors could happen, which would increase cost. Again, that last point there is really important, that I've linked it back to cost. So the three parts here is what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and I'm still saying why I'm doing it here, but just by looking at the other option. Okay, so not changing the payment options is better because, okay, paying per item would mean that staff would rush. Okay, so I've started off by saying that is not to pay workers per frame, and then at the bottom I've said if they did change the frames, this would happen. Okay, so criticising their approach. Big thing, no contradictions at all, linking it back to the case study, linking it back to increasing costs. At the beginning of the video, when I started it off, I said there is no one prescribed way. Okay, these are a couple of quotes from the mark scheme, from the exam report. So this is what you're trying to achieve in terms of your judgment. 1, very well explained reasoning context, or 2 or more reasons with at least 1 well explained will get you top marks. So 1 really well explained reason, or 2 or more reasons with at least 1 explained. So again, the reasons of development. The chosen method must be clearly supported to access E2 and not simply be a reiteration of previously made arguments. So again, by using the 3 W's, what you've chosen it, why you've chosen it, why you've not chosen the other one, is really going to help with that, so make sure you do not repeat yourself. Okay, last one. Just a few hints and tips and stuff that I know that you wouldn't do. No definitions are needed. So if it's looking at discuss if they should use bonuses or staff training to improve motivation, you don't need to define motivation. Don't just list the advantages and disadvantages. So if it was that question, don't just say, right, bonuses, you get the money, you work hard to get it, it's a lump sum, it's paid. Problems would be it's costly, it might become taken for granted, is actually making them work harder. Don't just list the advantages and disadvantages. You only get level 1 for it. Don't use phrases like at the end, the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, so they should go for it. Okay, it means nothing. It doesn't give you a judgment, it doesn't give reasons why. With any of these, there's no right or wrong answer. So if it said should they change the payment system or not, if you said yes they should, you could still get top marks. Okay, obviously you don't contradict yourself. Really important quote within the examiner's report: there is no need for students to consider all the available options. Students can gain maximum marks by concentrating solely on the preferred option. So when I went back to my structure and the question about the posters at the hospital, you could just concentrate on the strengths of the posters. Okay, you don't need to balance it up, and you do not criticise the option that you've chosen. Examiners report: students would still be advised, however, to spend more of their time when answering these questions, providing reasoned justifications why they feel the solution they've given is appropriate. So you need to spend more of your time justifying why you've chosen it and why it's appropriate. So again, when you're doing it, looking back in your answer, the judgment should be the longest part of it. Never contradict your answer. Okay, never criticize it. Never say they could also do this, they could also do that. And then always answer a question which has been given. Use the wording to stay on track, to make sure that you are directly answering it. So that previous one about cost, the answer was purely about cost. Okay, so hopefully that helps.